Joining us now, author and columnist for the New York Daily News, now an MSNBC contributor, Mike Lupica. And from Capitol Hill, member of the Select Committee on Intelligence, Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Joe, good morning. Thanks for being on the show
Mika.
today.
How are you? First of all, our prayers and thoughts go out to the families of 16 service. Unbelievable. I flew on that plane a lot, C-130s. That's what we have squadrons of in West Virginia. When I was governor, I flew them quite a bit.
Well, thank you for that. And we wanted to get your thoughts on what we are hearing so far, these New York Times revelations about Donald Trump Jr. and Mika, this meeting.
I'm sorry. I've been thinking a lot about, how could you ever do something, or how could you even think that that was a proper meeting to have? First of all, it starts with the campaign, how you put your campaign together. Paul Manafort, the campaign manager, to allow anything like that to happen, to allow any type of a meeting to transpire, a campaign manager is totally incompetent to allow that to happen without fighting and threatening to leave if something this egregious happens. And so that would question Paul Manafort, because we all know he was for hire. Paul would go wherever the highest dollar was. He didn't care who it was from. But for Donald Jr. to take that type of a meeting, or thinking that it was proper for him to be in that meeting, is just uncalled for. I just can't explain it. But it just tells you this whole transformation from the private sector to the public sector. In the private sector, I guess you do whatever's, no bars hold, whatever it can to give you a competitive advantage. I understand that. But boy, in the public sector, that is so much different. But to see that we've digressed, that we've digressed in the public arena to this type of behavior is just uncalled for.
So let's crystallize what you're saying and hear from it. Of course, NBC's Keir Simmons got an exclusive interview with this Russian lawyer. And in this meeting with this woman that you're about to hear from, Jared Kushner, Paul Manafort, the head of the campaign, and of course Donald Trump Jr. The three of them took the time to meet with this Russian lawyer. Here is the NBC exclusive interview with Keir Simmons, hearing from her. Take a listen.
All I knew that Mr. Donald Trump Jr. was willing to meet with me. I could recognize the young gentleman who was only present in the meeting for probably the first 7 to 10 minutes, and then he stood up and left the room. It was Mr. Jared Kushner, and he never came back, by the way. And the other individual who was at the same meeting was always looking at his phone. He was reading something. He never took any active part in the conversation. That was Mr. Manafort.
They had the impression, it appears, that they were going to be told some information that you had about the DNC. How did they get that impression?
It's quite possible that maybe they were looking for such information. They wanted it so badly.
So, Joe, the Russian lawyer says they really wanted that information. Donald Trump Jr. has confirmed the meeting and confirmed in his statements that they were looking for information on Hillary Clinton. What do you deduce?
Well, but first of all, she seems surprised they even met with her. I think she was surprised and caught off guard by the meeting itself. I don't know what went on to set that meeting up. I know that when you're running a campaign, you do opposition research. You do everything you can to gather all the information that would give you an opportunity to either highlight your opponent and the deficiencies that opponent has, but you don't go to the length when you're going to a known adversary such as Russia, who we just, the Cold War and the standoff that we've had with them over the years. That's something that would be totally unacceptable. I can't explain it, Mika. It just makes no sense at all. And I'm sure that Mark Warner has talked about this on the Intelligence Committee. We're going to have people coming forward. I'm sure that Richard Burr and Mark will call the appropriate people and then have our staff look at all the info they can and the dialect back and forth and any type of paper moving back and forth, how these meetings, who was there, what was the purpose, then we'll make a determination.
So, Senator, Donald Trump Jr. is tweeting this morning that the Democrats and the media are so obsessed with this story that they're making a big deal out of it and there's not a big deal to be had. Does he have a point that members of your party are just obsessed with Russia and trying to bring down the president by any means possible?
Well, trying to make this political is the wrong approach to take, because you have Republicans speaking out. They're aghast also. When you have Lindsey and John McCain and Lindsey Graham and everybody else speaking out, this is not proper behavior. in any type of political setting. There are certain things you don't do. We haven't sunk to that low. I know we're getting close to the bottom, but thank God we haven't hit it yet. And to have this as acceptable behavior is wrong. Just wrong. You know, maybe they didn't do anything illegal. Just say I made a mistake and made a bad judgment. I come from the private sector. I would have used anything I could to get advantage over my competitor. I thought the same rules applied in the public sector. That would be more acceptable to me. It wouldn't be acceptable, but it would be more explanation to me that you're having a hard time transitioning.
Mike
But
Lupica,
guess what? Public sector has to be done in a very transparent way for the public to have confidence and faith in our process.
And Mike Lupica, there we have Don Jr. talking about it, this nonsense story, this nothing meeting. We had a Republican senator coming out saying nobody cares about this. Well, yeah, actually, you know what? Mike Lupica, investigators care about this, and U.S. attorneys in just about every district in America would care about this.
And Bob Mueller's going to be
Maybe the law doesn't
fascinated
matter
by it.
to Don Jr. Maybe the law doesn't matter to a lot of Republican senators. But there still are prosecutors in America. There still are judges in America. There still are good people in America.
There's still laws in America.
Who believe we are a nation of laws and not a nation of men.
And Joe, at what point do more Republicans than Lindsey Graham and John McCain stand
And Ben
up,
Sass, yeah.
stand up and do something and not look like they're suffering from a terrible stomach malady, which is no guts? Look at what this Russian lawyer said. It's quite possible that they were looking for that information. It's not us that was looking for that information. It's not the devil liberal Hollywood elite. She's suggesting that the Trump campaign, and Joe, why would Donald Jr. think that Russia was an enemy? He's grown up thinking these were business partners of his father. He must have looked at some of these Russian people like they were Santa Claus.
Well, and again, I mean, he said he's gotten more money. The Trump people have gotten more money from Russia than anybody else. Don Jr. said that back in 08, 09. Eric Trump said basically the same thing a couple years ago.
Well, they know how business works in Russia, and business and billionaires have direct ties to the Kremlin. So this isn't just some billionaire whose son is a musician that tried to set up a meeting that maybe they could provide some information. They know that everyone has ties to the very top.
And there's a quote.
Got to bring it up again.
Russians make up a pretty disproportionate cross-section of our assets. We see a lot of money pouring in from Russia, Don Trump Jr. So, Joe, where does the investigation go from here?
Well, Joe, I mean, it's going to continue. It's not going to stop. And you said something there, the rule of law, that's what makes us different from any part of the world. We are a land of laws. And no matter how high you are on the totem pole or how low you are on the totem pole, you should be treated the same. Justice is blind, and you're treated the same. But you just can't have certain aspects of what you think because of your wealth or your stature that you're able to do things that other people can't, and they should be forgiven. Donald Jr. should come forward, come to the committee, and he'll be requested to come to that committee, speak openly. If you made a mistake, say you made a mistake. That's stupid. I mean, it was just uncalled for to do that. But to thinking that you're going to get an advantage and your father's in the campaign to where basically he might be the underdog or he was the underdog, and you're doing everything you can to equal the playing field or level the playing field, there are certain things you just can't do in the public sector. You have to learn that. And they might learn the hard way here, but there's not people going to be backing off, and I think Republicans feel the same as Democrats.
A little humility
Put the country
would help.
first. It's about our country. If we can't protect the things that made us the country that we are, then God help us all.
No, Mike?
Well, you know, Senator, to that point that you just raised, and I'm a little off message here, we focus intently on Russia and the First Family, members of the First Family, including the president, playing footsie with the Russians. You're speaking to us from a building, the United States Senate, in the capital of this country, where polarization has taken such an effect that very little gets done. And yet earlier today, 16 Americans dressed in the uniform of the United States Marine Corps boarded a C-5A in Cherry Point, and they are now in a cornfield in Missouri. Plane having crashed, they're dead. Every single day around the world, hundreds of thousands of Americans wearing the uniform of the United States of America do their job. Why can't we, you in the Senate and the House, do your job?
Oh, Mike, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, You know, this is the toughest place to come to work every morning if you can't get your head on right. What's the purpose of being here? I don't come to work as a Democrat, and my friends shouldn't come to work as a Republican. We should come to work as Americans. And we've got infrastructure. We have a tax system that's out of date. We've got job opportunities that we're not taking advantage of because our economy and people don't have confidence. We're not growing the way we should be. We should be getting our act together here and take care of a health care catastrophe that we have looming right now that because of politics, it could collapse and people basically, their lives are in jeopardy. And we can't come together to find ways to repair it and fix it. And you've got to come to this job. I'm in a hostile work environment. People are trying to defeat each other every day. We should be coming here finding ways to work. I mean, this is horrible. And I, being a former governor and being in West Virginia, we don't do things this way. We try not to. There's a time when you play politics and have a good time with it, have your differences to go on and sell your goods if you can. But there's a time that basically the state of West Virginia, the country of the United States of America, is far above anything that I do and my reason and purpose of being here. It's because of that, not because of being a Democrat or being a conservative or being a liberal or being a Republican. It is absolutely unbelievable. And to get your mind around this, for all of you in that room to come to work every day knowing that a person's supposed to be your friend but has an R by their name and you might have a D by your name and they're trying to get you defeated. And then we have a 2-year process. Right now we're in the 2018 cycle. And everybody's shooting at everybody already a year and a half out. I'm sick and tired of it already. I can only imagine the good people in West Virginia got to be sick and tired of it. But we'll get through it. We're stronger than this. We're better than this. We are a country that we're the hope of the world. If we don't get it right, God help the rest of the world because no one else is going to step to the plate.
Amen.
And we cannot leave a void. We cannot leave this void.
Member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Joe Manchin. Thanks for being on the show. Great to see you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Joe.
Bye-bye. Thank
Up
you, guys.
next, he
Bye-bye.
guided Dallas through a devastating shooting after a peaceful protest turned violent. Retired Police Chief David Brown, and what's transpired over the past year. He joins the conversation ahead.